Hey everyone, my name is Dale Thorne. I am the co-founder of SDR Leaders of USA. If you're not aware, SDR Leaders of USA is now the world's largest and most active sales development leadership community ever built. The whole mission around SDR Leaders of USA is for leaders to start dictating the direction of sales development by 2030. Um, a lot of how people are active inside our community. We have a very active Slack group. As of today, we have nearly 1,800 members that have joined organically over the last 20 months. I looked at the analytics this morning. There's been more than 4,000 messages that have been sent in the last 28 days. And that Slack group itself, it's very active. I think yesterday there was around 4 or 5 questions, and there was a thread of answers coming as responses from those questions. So it is extremely active. Leaders are finding SDR leadership roles, sharing that they're hiring SDRs, and there's various different channels within the group. Today we have 26 chapter heads across 18 different cities. So if where you're based, there may actually be a chapter head that you can reach out to bring more leaders together and have a great time. Today it's going to be a very special event. We have Kelly. Her topic today is going to be around how to intentionally climb the SDR leadership ladder. But I don't want to introduce Kelly way too much. I think that's best for her. Kelly, would you like to introduce yourself?
You bet. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I am Kelly Lichtenberger. I have been in the SDR world my entire career. So I will date myself and say plus years. And I started as an SDR and I absolutely loved it. And when I started, I will tell you there was no such thing as the internet yet. And I can't believe it made it. It's still around. So who knew? But so I would actually drive by buildings and be like, what is that company? I need to call them. And, I would call on an actual phone and, yellow pages and whatever I could do. So anyway, once the internet came into play, things started happening where pricing of software started declining pretty rapidly. And I thought this could be a really unique time for being on the phone because I think things can be done internally. And here we are, all these years later. And throughout the whole time, I've seen different iterations of SDR, but the one thing it has never changed is still the number one thing is that phone will be your lifeline. And so I love SDR world. I love phone. I love all of that. And so I've worked with companies on the training side, growing their teams. And then recently, within the past couple of years, wrote a book about this space specifically with SDRs and helping them. So I'm very passionate about
So good to have you, Kelly.
it.
So good
Thank
to
you.
have you. Um, Similar to our other virtual events, and also just in general, like around SDR Leaders of USA, we want to help drive more conversation, but that's driven by others. And so throughout this, so essentially this is a different type of format. There's no presentation, it's more of a fireside type of conversation between Kelly and I. But it's not just us, it can also be you too. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to add in the chat, but you're also more than welcome to come off mute to ask Kelly a question, myself a question. Again, all around driving more conversation. So, Kelly, I have
Yes.
my first question for you though. So, why should sales development teams exist in the first place? Like, why does an SDR team exist?
You bet. It's really interesting. I think that every single person at a company should have to do this role before they do their actual role. And why is because I think it's the foundation, not only with your existing customers, but and prospects, obviously, but your channel teams, all of the different parts of the company's ecosystem starts with if you can do this role and understand and have an appreciation for it, it can only help you in your existing role and with the team. And why I believe that is because knowing what to say, how to introduce to get the new customer, how to work with marketing, how to work with all of these different teams. I think it exists because, again, I'm going to go back to that phone. I think it's a really tough skill set. The rejection, the same thing every day, the monotony. It's really tough to stay within this and be successful and be so excited every day to come back to it. And but when COVID happened, there were sales reps, really high end sales reps that were calling me going, how do I prospect again? How do I haven't done this in a long time. Tell me, how do I get my people back on the phone? How do I get people interested in me? They hadn't had to do it. So it's amazing skill set. And so if you just rely on marketing, you're not introducing anything new. And I think that's where it's an amazing asset to the company. And especially now with AI, I'll go even further that, we hear it all day, but it's great to have it. But that human element is still what gets you over the finish line.
100%. I think it's like Lars Nielsen that says that the hardest part around closing a deal is finding it in the first place. It is
Yep.
a very, very difficult role. But leading around your background too. So you were an SDR. What was the catalyst or what was the motivation for you to want to go into leadership?
Yeah. So I once that perfect storm happened and I saw the pricing of software coming down and thought, this could be great. I started realizing quickly that um, other people starting to come into sales would say, "Oh, you've been here at the company I was at that time for a while. Can you help me? How do I do this?" Or, at the time I was the top rep, so they wanted to know, and that's great. But I found when I was helping them, I loved that part. I loved then seeing people have a passion for it and want to start and come in as well, just like I did. I thought that was so exciting. And I did. I loved seeing people hit their goals, hit their numbers, and I wanted to continue doing that. And so I even at one point had my own consulting company and was helping companies build out SDR teams. And so again, I find it very rewarding. So for me, it was, just having that chance of helping somebody and I loved it. And so I wanted to figure out how to become a leader and continue in that space.
Love that. Love that. And over time, you've moved up the ranks from manager, maybe a director, and then
Hmm.
now currently the VP of Sales Development at Silverfort.
You got
So,
it.
so like around managers, like I'd love to like dig in around
Yeah.
specific parts around
Yeah.
around the managers, directors, and also like even your role as a VP. So let's start on the manager side.
Hmm.
So as you've hired managers in the past, let's start with the interview process. What qualities or characteristics, when you're talking with an SDR manager candidate, what are those things that you look for when you're potentially hiring for somebody for a manager role?
And I'm very lucky to say I have one sitting on this call today, which is amazing. And I think, and so I'm going to put her on the spot, Savannah. But I'll think back to the interview I even had um, with her recently. Is that I want to know that somebody's as passionate for this role as I was. So they're in it. They want to actually hands in. They're not afraid to get on the phone. They're not afraid to, not just put up stats and say, here's what you have to hit and what you have to do, but they will live it with you and they will sit and they will guide you and they won't just tell you. They know the difference between true activity and what's going to drive results. And those could be two completely different things. Also realizing that what makes one person successful may not make another person successful. So, how do we manage from a place that we have these overarching KPIs, but we have the human element of we have people? So, what is it? Do you need enablement to be more online? Do you need it to be in person? Do you need it to be hands on? What are those things? And I think today it even becomes more challenging because there's different ways to run a group. Our team is hybrid, and so we're in the office 3 days a week. But other teams are fully remote. So you have to look at all of those things and say, where do I meet the team where they are? Give them space to be um, uniquely themselves to bring something to this role while hitting those KPIs and those metrics, because that's what people want to know too, is how can I bring my own, I call it your special sauce. What is that? What are you creating? What's going to make you feel successful at this role? Because then back to what I said at the beginning, it's monotonous. Day after day, it's the same thing. So I need something to light you up every day to want to go and do it again. So I need a manager that finds that, right down to even spiffs. People get motivated by different things that they want to earn. It's not always, believe it or not, we're in sales, but not everybody has to have dollars. Some want to have an extra day off. Some want to go volunteer. All of those things are really important to know about your team. So that's what I'm looking for in a manager. That not only are they passionate about the role, they can do the role, but they're passionate about people and what's going to motivate them.
For managers, like with a manager, it's so important to balance being a people leader, but also a strong operator. How do
Correct.
you provide guidance to your managers on how to balance that well or better?
I think, it's just working with them too and finding out. Now I have to find out I have to find out what's going to make the manager happy. So again, now I have KPIs. So, what drives them, what gets them, excited about driving the team. And so that's what I want to know. Where's what made them successful in the SDR role themselves? And how do I take that and then build upon it for them? And then have a path for them to be continuing to build on their career. So they're not feeling like this is it forever, too, because they're going to want to get to the next level for themselves. So that's really important.
What do you think some managers, what do you think some mistakes that managers make that are easily avoidable?
So I think especially first time managers is we want to come in and we have those KPIs and we have those goals and we start managing just to those. So again, we are just so activity like we got to have these numbers and this is how we um and again that can become there's seasonality, there's again things in personal life that can affect that. So being able to say these are the KPIs, but where are we having success? Let's dissect it because I would like to say, again, I'm such a firm believer in the phone and I love it. And it's a skill set that I think if you can nail that, you can be the master at this SDR role. But at the same time, um, I have to know each day there's different geographies I work with. There's different things that are going on. So if I pushed everybody every day to only a certain number of dials, I'm missing what they're doing really well. Maybe they hit something where their messaging is going great, or all of a sudden they have a LinkedIn campaign that's done really well. So they want to drive that a little bit more that day. I have to be able to look at that. So I think managers that come in, it's watching that they don't just think because these are our KPIs and I want to make my goal and I want to show up and do 100%, blah, 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 but I can only do these things. And then, that gets pretty daunting to the team and pretty heavy.
Which causes a lot of it, can potentially cause a lot of attrition, which then obviously impacts their goals, but also your goals too.
Correct.
Got a question for you. The jump
Yeah.
from manager to director is large. How do you define the difference between the roles, and how would you recommend education yourself to make that jump without an opportunity internally to be available?
Okay, so there's a lot in that question.
Yeah,
So
there
that's
is a
all
lot.
good.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
let's pretend even if there is role. I would say this, different companies are have different opportunity as well for those. It's one of the things I say to people when you're looking for at your roles to really see what that career path is and to know that there is one internally. Some companies, like you want to know it's happened before
Yeah.
because some companies it's just not a possibility. I don't know why. It's you make the offers going in. I've just seen it both sides.
Yeah.
But let's say you're at a company that wants to grow, wants to build in your career, and I certainly want to do that where I'm at. I think the biggest thing is we're a growing company, so we haven't had that director role yet, but that will become something that we'll have soon. At other companies where I've done it, though, that path is it can seem really big, but it's really working closely. I want people to stay again. When you find people that are passionate about this role,
Mhm.
I want to give them those opportunities. So then it's taking what is the difference between the manager and director role. So is the director role global? Is the what is the look of that director position within the company that you're at? So then it's looking at, does the role, where are they reporting into? So if they're reporting into a CRO or if they're reporting into another layer, those all matter. So then it's a layer of analytics. What's expected of that role? How do they work? How closely with the other managers do they work? What's the size of the team? What's expected of them? So that's what I would do. I would look at what is in the confines of the company that you're at. What are the director roles looking like today? What's expected of them? And then build out from there. And for me, that jump doesn't have to be so big. What's usually the difference is, like I said, it's knowing how to not only work with the managers. I think the biggest jump is then taking yourself out of the day to day with the individuals and now having to work up
Mm.
with other leaders to get across the role that you play, what's what the SDRs are bringing to the table. Because I will say this, that's probably the hardest thing for me to show sometimes results. You're in between marketing a lot of times and sales and channel. You have all of these people that have different expectations of the team. So it's that piece that is really key. How do I prove the success within each of those roles that I'm bringing pipeline to, or I'm expected to set meetings for? What's expected from those leaders that I can show the results? And it may be different for each group. So then it's looking at what are the KPIs that are going to make sure that all of these other departments and leaders see the value that I'm bringing. So if marketing, if it's converting MQLs, I want to make sure in my goal setting that I'm able to show that we're doing that for them while doing outbound over here, which I know companies want for their finance. That's the key piece. So that's the jump. Do they understand how to be able to really run an organization for working with these different groups? And again, highlighting, somebody said that communicating up, that's the big thing, being able to really communicate that. So that's where then all of a sudden you do need your numbers and you need to understand what's going to make those other organizations successful by the role that you're doing as an SDR team.
Is so making the jump from a manager to director is essentially like creating those cross-functional partnerships, understanding what's important to them, what their KPIs that they have, and how those managers' business is actually coinciding with how successful they are. But then
Correct.
constantly communicating up, it sounds like in a more proactive way.
Much more proactive way.
How do so in what ways have managers proactively communicated to you of how they're partnering cross-functionally with different partners?
So I like to make sure that we're doing different things, and it's not just like the setting a 30-minute meeting, whether that's setting up full team meetings to go through those results and show those results. I think sometimes people start to get worried if I just go and start sending out my results, that looks like I'm pounding my chest, and I can't just do that. So sometimes people sit in silence, and I just think, wow, all these other groups, you see their success because of, for instance, in sales, things close when you see that. But you don't always see the SDR piece and the wins. So you have to make sure, because there's more wins besides just that pipeline build. It could be that they're opening more doors, they're getting more of those connections on LinkedIn, they're going further with multi-threading within a company and showing that. I think that's really key. So having a town hall that really goes through making sure that the SDRs are recognized within that. So their piece of what they're doing is being, talked about, and people, it's being recognized. So making sure you have that voice. Making sure, again, you don't just talk to them, you talk with them. So have the other leaders, are there any new things that are happening within their organization? Any changes, anything that they are being asked to do? Where can SDRs help that? So if you become a partner with these other teams, that changes all the dynamics. It's not just I'm showing up to tell you what great things we're doing, but no, I want to remember this is what you said was really important for your team, whether it was top tiered accounts, like we want to grow more enterprise, we want to have more target accounts we want to get through. Great, show me those, let me work on that. And sometimes as SDR leaders, we have to step back a little bit and say, well, these are our goals over there. Is this helping us to this goal? Or in the long run, it will. But sometimes we have to say, let me help this manager with what they need to really embrace what SDRs can do for them. And that lifts you up as well because you want them talking to other groups saying, I need the SDRs involved with this. This is where I need this to happen. This is, and be that partner with them.
Taking a step back, still focusing on managers, what should the makeup of the day-to-day of a manager look like? That is potentially in a position or eventually will be in a position to move into a director role.
So it has to be somebody, for me, it's somebody that's working hands on with the team. And they're listening to calls and they're shadowing and they're giving feedback. They're running enablement classes. It's really hands on to the point where, probably they're not going to have much time in their day just to jump on a call, even if I call them because I'm in a meeting over here. I'm with somebody listening to calls over here, doing their one-on-ones. So I think that's really important.
That makes total sense. That makes total sense. Now, moving from a manager to now to a director role. When managers move into a director role, what are some things that surprise them about being in that role, probably in the first month? And like, what's something that would, or some things that would surprise them about being a director?
I think the amount of meetings that they have to go to with presentations on numbers, and it's that dry. I can remember doing that myself, and all of a sudden, I wasn't talking about, oh, we were doing this great campaign, or we're doing this, great call out over here. It started to become really about those numbers. So then I was looking at all kinds of Excel sheets. That was the most surprising. And then how I go, okay, where do I show the wins in that? Where do I show excitement? And just this, Excel sheet for what the team is doing and bringing to the table and how hard the role is. So that's what I would say. How do they show up with those presentations, but also make sure that again we're hitting those the uh, the points of what every other team needs in those meetings to show their success as well. Or you start getting those conversations like, what is the cost to acquire a customer and how is an SDR costing us too much? Or I think that's the most surprising.
So basically, being a director is essentially owning the business and start owning or operating it like a real business. So it's a
Correct.
transition from there's a people manager and operator, but then it becomes more of the operator side. But then on the people side, it's basically ensuring that the managers that are rolling up into them are being supported. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And I think it's a tough transition because again, you were so hands-on with the team
Yeah.
and now you're more hands-on with the numbers of how the team operates. I've seen directors get there for the first time and struggle a little bit because, again, a lot of times the managers, like myself, even when I loved the role because I liked working hands on with the people so much. And then all of a sudden, it's my people group is much smaller and my analytics have to become much greater. And then working on, okay, hold on. I know what above me wants and expects, but then you have still the group that's demanding. It's very demanding. Sometimes everybody's like new to their career, so they're needing certain things, but not understanding. But I'm being pulled over here by executives for these numbers. So now it's becoming that I'm getting pulled a little bit towards, oh, I do have to get the call volume up. So how do I marry these two things? Keep the team happy and know that there should be some give in those numbers, but then I have to be over here saying, oh no, we're going to make these numbers by doing this. The conversations change a little bit. It's the hardest thing to get used to that new world of, again, pulling a little bit away from the team and more into the executive. we have to make this a profitable business.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Speaking of hard things with that transition, one of the things I just thought of was
Hmm.
in some organizations, there's a handful of different managers, and then
Hmm.
eventually maybe one of those managers is promoted into a director role. So there's that transition from those managers being peers and essentially friends at that point, potentially. But then when that one manager is promoted into a director role, those they're no longer their peers, they're, and may not be their necessarily their friends, but now that director is now their peer's boss. What advice would you give to a director that went through that transition around trying to, well, how can I say this? What advice would you give to that director who's now managing their former friends?
So I think that's really, it's a tough one, but here's the truth that I've learned over my many years being in this.
Okay.
Yeah. Who's paying your bills? You are. This is not, you're not leaving people behind. If other people have a problem with you getting there, it's still business, right? They may not like it, but that's on them. So you need to do your role, is my point. It's not about stepping over anybody. It's not, but now you're in this new position. This is business. So where you say the friends, I think those lines get blurred a lot of times, and you have to be really cautious. Listen, I have some of my very best friends that I have in this world that I've met in corporate, but that's less than my actual friends. Like I want to be friendly. I want to work together. I want to be close. But again, it's business, and the ugly side of that is there are going to be people that are going to come for you no matter what when you are promoted. And if that stopped you, or you're struggling with your role because of somebody that's below you now, that then you're not being true to yourself. As long as all of a sudden you don't get there and your ego's so out of whack that people are like, who'd this person become? But so again, I think you're in the business, you're in there to, again, you want to advance your career, not stepping over anybody. And that's just what's going to happen at different times. And those that truly care and see your potential and know what you're about, they're going to cheer you on. And they're going to be the same people that down the road you're going to cheer on and help to get to theirs. But those that have a problem that somebody else got promoted above them, chances are when we look at it, there's probably something on them that's going to stop them from getting to certain levels because of that type of thinking.
One that totally makes sense as well. And then, so like the day-to-day from a manager to a director, I'd imagine is a little different. So everybody here, I am a first
Yep.
line leader at the
Yep.
moment, but so I have some idea and some context from a lot of different discussions, but it's always helpful to hear from Kelly as well. So like there's the day-to-day of what makeup of a manager. What would you say is the day-to-day makeup of a director?
So a director is working with other directors, and again, finding out what their business runs, how it runs, what it needs, how the SDR organization feeds them. So again, what are their goals? What are their KPIs? How do yours flow into theirs? So when you're setting up your model, again, you're able to touch on those points where here's the areas that we work really well together. Here's areas we might need to change because that doesn't look like that fits. So you're working again more with numbers, more on just again the day to day of now we're back to those KPIs. What's going to get us to the finish line as a company? You're starting to go to that next level of goals driven and what it means to the bottom line versus people driven and what it means to the bottom line. So I'm going to be more in the numbers versus the people at that point.
Are there certain projects that I'm thinking about the word now project for some reason. Are there certain projects that you found that highly successful directors work on?
Yeah. So for me, it's again, I want to be able to, as a director, I wanted to be able to communicate to the business leaders what the SDR team did, but come up with ideas and be creative on how we start not only taking those KPIs, but beating those KPIs? And what are things that are going to get some recognition within the company at a higher level? And again, that's where I'm saying you're taking it away from the individual people and now you're looking at the business of it. So where will I have the impact to then show up at a town hall or where people see the business of SDR being successful versus I'm working as a manager with person to person to person and showing the success of that to my director. Here's my stack rank, here's the people, here's what they're doing. Now I'm taking all of that information and I'm presenting it as a team number. So then as a team, and sometimes they're global, sometimes, directors can run different groups. How do I present that in a way that's again showing that we're touching the bottom line for this group and this group and this group and showing the success? Because now, again, we have to show it's the engine, right? So how is everything coming from marketing, moving through this sales funnel, getting to the sales team, coming out the other side? That's what I need to show are all of those pieces at a higher level.
Are these things that say a director, you're having a one-on-one with a director? And
Yeah.
so what are those the things, or is there anything else that the director should come prepared to the one-on-one with you every single week?
Yeah. So for me, I want to know, I I'm going to dig into the actual numbers more with them.
Okay.
So where we are to goal, what are the things that are stopping us from getting there? Head count, attrition issues that we could have. What are we doing to make sure that we're upskilling the team? So working with enablement. Are there other things that are happening within the organization, making sure they're fully aware of it? So say we work with channels and there was a new partner that came on. How are we making sure that we've communicated properly as far as what the team does? So those are more of the things I want to do versus again on the individual, how's Dale doing this week? I need to know as an organization, communication, what's next as far as the team, where's my risk in the business getting done? Um, because then as a VP, I need to make sure that I'm prepared and nothing is surprising me when we get to the end of the quarter, end of the year, whatever it is.
Now, when I'm talking about end of quarter, end of year, for going back to even just managers, what type of purview or how far in the future would best-in-class managers be looking? Is it on like based on like how their targets are measured, monthly, quarterly, half year? Like, what is the view? How far ahead are managers looking and thinking about how and planning around success, their team being successful?
I would say this, one of the greatest misconceptions that I find with SDRs, especially first line managers, is they're looking, if let's say your quota is month to month, they're looking only month to month. SDR role, the toughest thing is realizing that what we do today doesn't affect us today. Most times it actually doesn't even affect us this month. It affects us a few months out. So what I'm always talking to the team about is if we take our foot off the gas right now, like, oh, we just had a great week. Whew, that was tough. Next week, lean back a little bit. In a couple months, that all of a sudden you're going to go, why am I not hitting my number? And if you go back, that's why. So when people in the summer are like, I've got more breaks, I've got more, all of a sudden come, when you want to close out the year well and you're wondering, why am I struggling? It's because probably in June or July you were, enjoying summer. So you have to be cautious. So look at, what is your sales cycle like? That's what I would look at. How long? What's your average deal size? How long does it take to close that? Is it a size company? So enterprise different than commercial. I look at all of those things. This is what a director should be doing to then work with their manager too, by the way. So then they go to their manager and say, okay, we really need to be looking at here where I'm at Silverport. I really look at, we take about 6 months. So I'm really looking at how many meetings are we doing this week? We're always talking about that, not just for this week, but then for the month that leads to the next month. So we have about a 6 month that we're looking at all the time.
Gotcha. So basically for managers, they can fall back well, they can make the mistake of falling back on how they're thinking and viewing things as their team members or their SDRs are doing. So if the SDRs are thinking in the have the view of 1 month because they're paid out every single month, then the managers are making the mistake because they're doing the same thing that their SDRs are doing every single month, it sounds like.
Correct. It's
Okay.
also tough because if you're training to just that month too, then that's a lot of pressure
Yeah.
for somebody then to be, if somebody is saying on the phone, a prospect is really giving you a solid reason not to have the meeting that month or to get back together that month, and people are pushing too hard, you could lose people because they're like, enough of the, I thought you weren't trying to sell me. And now all of a sudden you're pressuring me to take this call right now. So there's a balance there. So first time managers, that's the hardest thing, I think, because we do want to make our numbers and you do want to see that going up. But if you're just very focused on what's in front of you right now only, you are going to get stuck. And then it's going to be hard to get out of that rut because you
Yeah.
only knew to how to manage to that day, to that month, to that week. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. Got a question from Kyle. How do you feel managers and directors should be measured slash compensated? SAOs, ARR, something else, additional, some combination, what?
so I still think it needs to be tied to your team overall. And then you can have, maybe there's additional bonus metrics that you can have as a leader of the team. The reason why I do like it tied to what your team is doing is obviously then it keeps you focused on making sure you're doing the right things with your team and you're not just, you're doing one thing, they're doing another thing. You're all in it together. So even myself, I want to make sure I'm all in it, right down to if there's certain KPIs. I raise my hand all the time to say, make that part of what I'm doing because I want to make sure I'm motivating them the same way. If they come to me and say that's we're not able to make it, I really want to listen. I don't want to just go, oh well, it doesn't matter because if it's not a part of my goal, maybe it doesn't matter. And I hope you're not like that, but that could happen. So I like to have that. But then on top of it, you have your numbers as far as sometimes I like to have additional bonuses where it goes a little further. So closed one. So on top of pipeline, maybe there's additional kickers for closed one. Maybe there's additional kickers for if you hit a certain pipeline number, maybe it's if you're tied to 25% of the build of the overall pipeline, maybe if you get to 40%, it's additional bonus, or maybe again, if it closed one, something else there. That's how I give additional things like that. But it has to be tied to the overall. So for me here, we're driving at Silverfort, we're driving to pipeline. The whole company is. And so that's really important.
Gotcha. Another question. How do you manage up to a new VP who is the exact opposite of your previous VP? I guess this is coming either from a manager or a director.
Ooh. So the VP is new. Is that what we're saying?
Exactly. Yeah. The VP is no.
And they're different than the previous VP. So I'm in the
Correct.
same role, but now okay. Um, so this sounds like there could be a story on this one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would say this. So if it's a brand new VP, um, well, first of all, I want to help them. So I hope I can show up as a director and say, I want to help you be successful. So here's what we've been doing as a team. Are there additional things that you think that are going to be needed to make you a success? Because we're on the same team, but again, if they know that I have their best interest, it's probably good to build a relationship. So that's what I would be looking for. I'd find out what are the things that make them feel successful. I would find out the things that really rub them the wrong way. And I would just ask them straight up because those are the things I don't want to get stuck because I didn't know that. And I was treating new VP as the old VP, and old VP didn't like XYZ, but new VP thinks that's the best thing. So I just want to ask. Now, this might be that I'm coming from wearing the VP hat, and maybe as a director, maybe you were nervous, but I would tell you that's the difference. Some of the best managers and directors I've ever had had really wanted to, where we say as managers, I want to get to know my people and makes them run. I love when somebody sits down and says, I know you're in this position, but how do we work together? And how do I help you get successful? Because it gets lonely. The higher you go, it gets really lonely, and people aren't talking to you like that. And then some days it's heavy. I'll be honest, there's some really tough days that I would love to just walk in and be like, oh, Savannah, you should see what's happening. And you have to hold it all in and still show up and smile. Oh, I can let out a little bit every now and then of, this is the pressure I'm feeling today. So why you may feel that for me. But I love it. One of the things that Savannah does, and she's been great about this, is just that working with me as not only, hey, I know you're my boss, but like we're a team here. So that's how to treat it. And then if there is something, I will say this because sometimes we do have managers we don't like working with, and you have to suck it up. Um, you have to find those things though that you do have in common and focus on that. So on the worst day with a manager you might struggle with, find the things that you can say, "Oh, but look over here. Look at this good thing," that you know that they'll appreciate. So you feel okay and you don't just feel like I got to get out of this. Um, because it is tough if I think probably, well, many of us have probably had a manager that has led our decisions, maybe with how we're going to stay within a business, leave a role, and that's tough when it's you're making those big decisions about your life based on a person at the end of the day. And remember, they change. They don't always stay. This market is somebody may be in that role today, they may not be tomorrow. So you don't know how long that time is that you're going to have to put up with what might be really tough for you.
Fair enough. What would you say is the main differences between a director and a VP level? What would you say again, the biggest differences would be?
Yeah. So for me, the biggest difference from a director to a VP, now it's working at that executive level and really understanding the business part of business. So again, what the board expects of the leadership team is very different than what even the VPs expect of a director, what a director expects of a manager. Different game. So now we are just, for me, it's all about I have to understand what are the metrics driving the business at the end of the day. Because before you had your KPIs, you had your goals, you're managing to that. That's what you have to show at a director level. At a VP level, now I'm having to come in and really understand uh, the CAC, how the cost to acquire a customer. I have to understand things that are very different that might not before it had nothing to do with what was going to make me successful as the SDR team. Now I have to understand, well, how many actual meetings do I need to get to stage one? Because stage one average price is this. How do I drive that up? If we're working with enterprise, it's much more analytical. Now I'm really having to drive just to the numbers 100% of the time. While over here working with my management team though, and not having to bog them down with that. But that's what I would say. Really understanding the business, the
One
numbers.
of the one of the parts that around knowing the business and knowing your numbers is probably around your P&L. Is that correct?
Correct. You own your own. Now I'm driving, like I have a, budget for just travel. So I'm looking at, okay, there's 10 shows that everybody's going to be vying to go to. How can I, throughout the year, I got to move all of these things, spiffs. What do I have? Here's how much money I have. How can I make it exciting? How can I, you know, parse that out? How can I make sure for things like President Club? How do I make sure I can get my team there and present why it's so important that they were, part of the bottom line? But yeah, that P&L is really important. Jockeying headcount. Maybe I need more in EMEA, and now I've got to move somebody. How do I take somebody from America's team and let them down to know that I need somebody over here because I've got more business coming in over here? So that's going to be better for the bottom line over there. And now I'm going to have my Americas upset because I just took a head count. It's all of that.
When you're talking about like creating your team budget and your P&L and so on and so forth and creating a budget for your team, who's who is involved with those conversations? Is it your direct line to either your CRO, your CMO, your chief business officer, or is it in conjunction with finance? Like who is in the room having those types of discussions around your
Yeah.
budgets?
Yeah, so it's all of those that you just said. So at the end of the day, I am working with my, CRO, president of the company, but we're then having meetings to say, okay, with the CFO, here's what we came up with as a plan. Does this meet what you were thinking? And then usually it's sort of, and you have to go back to the drawing board and then come back again. So it's many iterations of that. So it's the entire executive level as well as the go-to-market leaders that you're working with.
Are those conversations happening on a frequent basis, or is it happening on a certain cadence of like monthly, quarterly, or is it more so on an annual basis? Like what's that cadence look like? Just so everyone's aware.
As a VP, my go-to-market team I'm meeting with weekly as a whole team. And then I have meetings with each of them, each of the business units, um, weekly or bi-weekly, to make sure that we're all communicating on what's coming, if there's any product changes, pricing changes, all of that. And then uh, I'm having, quarterly meetings with another group of the exec level, just as far as results and what we did. And then it's usually every 6 months with now reviewing with, say, the CFO for what we did for H1 going into H2. And then H2, you start your planning for H1. And so that I would say every, 6 months to see if there's any changes.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And then when we're as on a VP level, what are some of the discussions or certain topics that you cover cross-functionally with different leaders on a recurring basis? Like what is the common topics that you discuss? Just so everyone's kind of aware of like what world you live in and how those conversations kind of go.
Yeah, so an example might be, let's say, for instance, there's a new product coming out. So with my sales leaders, I want to talk about what is the messaging that we should be using that I need to get to my managers to work with the team. What type of enablement are we having across the board for these new products? uh, then going back with marketing to say, okay, the lead flow should be XYZ for this new product set. Uh, Hot goes here, cold goes there. Then there could be operationally, what types of dashboards do I need to show the results of those, the new product line and where the success is. So those are the types of things that I'm having, you know, more so than again, just this is working really well for us. It's really what's changing, what's happening in the business. Is there a new industry that all of a sudden is top of mind for us as a company? Um, are there any changes in the sales teams? Like, again, are there different target accounts now that we have to be going after? So, how do we go after that? And what does that look like as far as number of touches and outreach? And what do we do as a group versus can I send over back to AI, to any AI agents that we have to take that off our plate to make sure that now this is where I'll get into my team's numbers. That's going to keep them being successful. If you're asking them maybe to do more touches on something or work on more cold leads or re-engagement leads, okay, well, where are some other things that might take more time? So then I have to alleviate some of that pressure from my team, knowing that's going to come because they're going to say, well, that's going to be harder to make my number. You have to be thinking of all of those things.
What's the one thing that you love about being a VP of sales development? But what's the one thing that you wish was a little different about being a VP of sales development? Just so everyone kind of
Yeah.
knows and kind of understand and feel what that's like.
Yeah. So what I love is the power. No, I'm just kidding. Um, Um, what I love about being a VP is I like to, again, because I've been in this role for so long, I really and truly from the top, I love being able to build these teams out, watch people start their career and progress and get those promotions. I love it. So if I can have a successful team, that means I'm bringing in other people, grow the team, see them. That's the best thing for me, that I can be in charge of that for so many different careers. And also because I love this, I don't, AI, when everybody had started talking about it's taking away the SDR role, and for me, really digging in to say no, how it complements. And we can do so much more at the human level with, yes, AI doing some of the monotonous role and some of those things that when I had no choice before, like if there's cold stuff that they can do, go do it. It takes 12 to 18 touches. Have the AI go do 6 touches for me so I can show up and on the human level get it over the line faster. The tough part again for being a VP is just really it sometimes it just can be lonely up there. And because I love people. I love working. I love getting my hands in. I still love making a call. I do. But you can't do that all the time. So that's where I say it. And you have to hold information. Sometimes, there's hard business decisions that are being made and you're thinking, how am I going to deliver this? That's the toughest thing.
Uh, moving from a manager to a director to a VP role, and from your perspective, how do you think sales development could change, or not could, will change in the next, say, like six months, 12 months? Like, what do you think? What do you think? How do you think things are going to be changing, if at all?
So my whole career, I can say this. So many things. So I told you at the very beginning, now we'll go full circle back. Um, I started before there was the internet. So when the internet did come along, people were like, you know what? The phone, we're not going to have to make any more calls. We're going to do this email thing. It's going to be amazing. That's all I need to do is type. So people went full on email. And then what happened? It started coming back, still the phone. Okay. And then all of a sudden, other things would happen. And people would say, oh, that phone. No, don't need that anymore. I think we're in another unique time where what's going to separate you and what's going to make you super successful is if you nail this skill, and it's a skill set. Understanding how to work on the phone, because that's where your human element comes in. Working with people, talking. I get on a call now and I know when it's an AI bot and I want no part of it. But your human element is that in my personal life and professional life, same thing. I want to be able to talk to somebody when I want them now and I need answers. I want a human. But I think it's really and truly it's making sure that you understand with all of the AI going on that getting that skill set is going to be the differentiator. So moving on, it's those teams that are able to take some of the heavier lifts and put it on AI, but knowing how to talk to people and getting through to teams and having tools that help you get to people faster, that's what's going to make you win.
There's always cycles to everything, right? And
Correct.
then life isn't linear, it's cyclical. And then that whole with how there's ebbs and flows to to different things, the ebbs and flows are created by people, and then tools are used by people. People don't aren't used by tools. I'd be
Yeah.
kind of scared if somebody was,
Yes.
but but like the people aspect will never ever change. We're essentially with being people, the number one thing that we all want to have and feel is a sense of acknowledgement.
Yep.
And people are going to only want, essentially only really want to buy from people that they trust and understand, it sounds like, right?
That's correct. And I think it's more important than ever um, to know how to have those conversations, but you have to have them. You got to get in really quick. You got to know how to get somebody, within that first 7 seconds. And again, that's a whole other talk and topic that we can have someday. But that's where I'm saying the skill set is, and that's where the enablement is, and continuing to work on that and work with your team to open those doors.
Last question on my end, and I want to leave it open for anybody if does have any questions. I have this opinion of people's career progressions or their promotions. It's kind of like an enterprise sell, where basically any role that you move into or you get hired into or you again get promoted onto, there's a high cost or essentially a high amount of potential value from it, right? And then typically the your career progression, it's an enterprise sell because it has a longer sales cycle length. And it could take 12 to 18 months. And some large
Mhm.
enterprise deals may take up to 3 years in order to get
Yeah.
there, right? And then within any enterprise sale, typically there's a large buyer committee. And there's not just one decision maker. There's various different people that need to have their opinions shared or their perspectives involved in order to close an enterprise deal,
Mhm.
right? And so then it's high value, long sales cycle length, and multiple stakeholders that are involved with your career progression. Would you agree with that or no?
100%. And I'd say this for anybody that's looking to expand their career from the very beginning, know those players. Don't wait until you think it's time and there's an opening to start getting to know that next level of leadership. So, manager going to director, know those directors, director to VP, know those VPs. Don't think because they have a title, you can't approach them. Sure, there's people out there that are like that, and probably I don't want to work with them anyway. But you want from a very early on, just I wanted to always know who they were. I wanted to learn from them. When I am looking to um, up my skill set, I go to those people. They're there for a reason. I want to learn from them, even if I don't want their job in the future. Help me. What do they bring to this business that can actually help me in my role? So then they know who you are. They know how motivated you are. That's at the end of the day, when they know you and they know that you are dedicated to the role, to the company, motivated to make a difference, they don't have to see your numbers. That's part of the winning strategy right there. I know every single person that's showing up every day that has presented themselves to me and it's genuine. They want to learn, they're hungry. I want to help them with that. I want to help get them to that next spot. And chances are, when that opens, I'm already thinking about them. And I say that to even SDRs that start. You never want to raise your hand for that position. You want people coming to you saying, we want you in this role. And you do that by showing them. Don't wait.
It's I have this perspective. The leaders that move into higher roles are the best, and especially the best ones. They never really fight for it. They're always chosen.
Yep.
Every single leader that I've ever met that has made that progression, they were chosen and they never fought for it because of what you just shared.
Yeah. And, I think we're in sales at the end of the day. Sell yourself. Always be selling yourself. And this is where, when we were talking about the friends, this isn't against anybody else, but go and have those meetings. This is a job. Like, you have your actual family and friends outside, but we sometimes spend more time here, but we do it so when we're with those family and friends, we can do those fun things and pay for those, whatever it is, and have our life. So don't ever stop selling yourself to be exactly in that position that you want. Everybody else around you is going to come and go. Think about yourself with this, not in a greedy, not in an egotistical way, but you're there for a reason. Again, you're doing this so you can get to the other side and have some fun and go on those trips and, have your life.
The more you invest in yourself, the better position you are to invest in others.
That's right.
Perfect. With that, Kelly, I think we're at the top of the hour. Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. You could have been doing anything else with your time right now. And then also shout out to Savannah
Nothing.
supporting her leader too.
Woo!
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate everybody that's in this organization because I watch too all day long, all the different things people ask, and I'm learning from all of you. So it was an honor to share any of my information and give back. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. See you guys all soon. Cheers.
Bye.